On the agenda tonight, we're going to be jumping into the second of 3 technique demonstration videos that are me demonstrating techniques that do pop up in a lot of the analysis videos that I do. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another video. So this video is going to cover pinched harmonics, natural harmonics, artificial harmonics, dive bombs, slides, pentatonic shape 1, blues scale, palm muting, bends, pre-bends, and bends with vibrato. And I'm going to pin a comment to the top of the comments section and put timestamps in there for you guys so that you can navigate from one technique to the next a little bit more easily. The next technique is pinched harmonics, and I'm going to keep the tone that I've got just to show the difference between the two. A straight note, or a straight pitch note, will sound like that. A pinched harmonic will sound like that. And all that's happening is that I'm picking the string and then following through with my thumb straight afterwards. So I'm stopping the string from vibrating, and that produces that overtone of that harmonic. We also have natural harmonics, which happen just by themselves. You don't need any fancy techniques with the right hand. There is a little bit of technique to the left hand. When we're playing them, I'm just going to play them at the 12th fret, probably the easiest place if you're starting with these. What I'm doing there is just resting my finger on the string and then removing my finger when I'm picking the string. The left hand leaves that string a fraction of a second after I picked it, so therefore stopping the vibration of that string. And if you are trying to get these harmonics, just make sure that you're right over the fret, and in terms of the silver line, the fret divider, that's where you want to be on top of, not in between like you would have if you were fretting a note. So once you're just hovering over that fret, that's where you'll find the harmonics. If I did it right between, you wouldn't really hear them at all. So just make sure you're hovering above that fret and you'll find them. And just quickly as well, there's another type of harmonic which is called an artificial harmonic, and you might see players doing that where they're playing a note with their left hand, and if you try and follow what I'm doing here, if I'm playing the open G, the harmonic is on the 12th fret, just up there. So it means if I want to now play the 2nd fret with the left hand, and now I try to play the harmonic with the right hand, it won't be there anymore. It will be 2 frets further up because this note has changed. So it means that if I take my 12th fret and then move it up, I can then get that artificial harmonic. And in terms of the technique involved with this, you just want to use either the 2nd or the 3rd finger to pluck the string whilst touching where the harmonic is with your 1st finger, and then just removing that 1st finger, and that will give you the harmonic. Kind of like that. And harmonics are one of those techniques that were used in the 80s with dive bombs. Another question that came up on Patreon is how do you do a dive bomb? And it's a combination of usually a pinched harmonic and then using the whammy bar, usually on a Floyd Rose, in order to go all the way down to nothing. Like that kind of sound, which is just synonymous with the 80s. But once you start adding in these harmonics, you get that kind of sound. And that's all it is, just pushing down on that whammy bar. I'd suggest that if you haven't got a Floyd Rose, don't do this on your Fender Strat or go too mental with it, because you're going to have some problems. It was specifically a technique that was used predominantly on the Floyd Rose because it was designed in order to do this. But that's all it is, and you can use it with chords or single notes or those pinched harmonics. The next technique is slides, and these are pretty self-explanatory. You can have slides over 2 frets or 1 fret, or all the way up and down the guitar. Kind of like that. The most important thing when you're sliding is just keep contact with the fretboard the whole time, wherever you're sliding to, and then wherever you're sliding back from that position. And this brings me on to a question on Patreon. Somebody asked about pentatonic shape 1 and also the blues scale, and those are shapes that come up all the time during lead playing. And even though they're not techniques, I'll just quickly take you through them. A minor, pentatonic shape 1 is going to be the same for all of the keys. We're going to be starting on this low E string. And that's our pentatonic shape 1. Now when we add in the blues scale, we just add one more note in, and that is going to be like this. I just added in that blues scale note and tried to exaggerate it as well, so you can see the difference between that first version, just the straight pentatonics, and then with the blues note in there. And the reason that it fits into this section is because of the slides. Sometimes when somebody's playing through that blues, you know, the little slide in there that we have is the blues scale slide. And they might be doing it in the lower octave or even in the higher octave. So that little slide, as I said, you can slide over 2 frets or lots of frets or 1 fret. That slide over that blues scale is one that you'll see all the time from all the top players, and you can even fret that if you want to by actually playing it with a little finger, doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's up to you how you want to play it. And the next technique is palm muting, and this is one of those where you have to look at the right hand, because it's when we rest on the strings to get a muted sound, and you can use this to either totally mute the strings or to keep some element of the pitch in there so you can hear the strings resonating but you get a muted sound. For example, if I'm just playing an A without the mute, I'm going to alternate between not muting and muting so you can hear the difference. And those are the difference between having open strings and muting. And you can see how you can still hear the A chord coming through my muting because I'm not totally on the strings. I'm down towards the bottom end of the bridge, just where the string meets the bridge, so you can still hear the notes. If I move up too high, you get absolutely nothing from it. You want to move that hand down until you get the desired amount of mute and chord or note, however you're playing it or whatever you tend to be playing at the time. But if I kept moving down, then I come off that bridge and we get that open string sound. And I'm using just the side of my hand here. I also fan out my little finger just to make sure I can get as much contact as possible on those strings so that I can mute them all if I want to. And when I'm playing lead, what will happen is the palm will just follow the pick. So it means that if I am playing, for example, on the G, my palm is resting on these lower strings, so there's nothing that can ring out in the background behind my playing. If I were to pick it, which would be a bit of a nightmare, but if I did, it's going to die straight away, so it shouldn't really affect my lead playing too much. Obviously you don't want to be picking the wrong strings, but sometimes when you haven't got that mute in place, if you are going for it on a string and doing bends or anything where you might be getting a bit of resonation or getting the guitar to move, you can start to hear strings just ringing out ever so slightly in the background. So you want to make sure that you rest on the strings that you don't want to hear so that the lines that you play are really clear and concise. And this takes me on to the next technique, which is bends, because over on Patreon somebody asked, how do you keep the other strings quiet when you're doing bends? And the answer to that is by when you bend up on the string, I'm actually collecting the other strings on the soft part of my third finger, the right hand is resting on these lower strings so that nothing else is going to be ringing out in the background. And if you've got a long nail, what you might find is that when you come down, you might inadvertently pluck a string as you come down because your nails caught it. Whereas you want to get the correct angle to collect the strings, and then as you come down, you don't get that plucking of any string as you come down. As a rule of thumb or a rule of hand, what you want to do is keep the low strings muted with your right hand, and when you are doing a bend, you want to bend up into those strings and just collect them on the fleshy part of your finger. So even if I'm actually hitting a lot of strings before I start my bend, just to give a percussive sound, but also to show how when you get good at this, you can mute the whole guitar apart from the note you want to hear. And I can even apply vibrato at the top of my bend without everything else ringing out and going crazy, because I've made sure that I've got that insurance policy of keeping everything quiet with the right hand on the low end, because those are the ones that are really going to ring out those lower notes. If you don't keep control of them, having this sound and being able to vibrato as well, it's all about keeping them muted. And just quickly, a pre-bend is where you do the bend and then pick like that, and that's just the opposite of a normal bend. Kind of like that. If you are at the point of getting used to bends, then the next stage really is trying to get the same vibrato, that thing that we mentioned earlier, at the top of your bends. So if I'm going, you can hear how that vibrato is consistent, even if I'm going. You want to have it in both places so that you can express wherever you are on the fretboard, whether you're at the top of a bend or on a fret. And I just changed fingers there because you should be able to do vibrato on all of your fingers, really. So I hope you guys found the video interesting. Thank you to everybody over on Patreon for the suggestions relating to the techniques to look at, and also the questions that came up over there as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!